Ciao a tutti, è un piacere essere qui, è veramente tanto tempo che non modero un panel in italiano, o meglio, nel mio paese, ma sarà in inglese. Quindi, hello everybody, thanks for being here. I'm Amelia Tomassicchio, I'm the editor-in-chief at TheCryptonomist. I'm very thrilled to moderate this panel about Coinbase. So thanks Elke for being here. Do you want to introduce yourself? Because I know you have a very interesting background working at Skype, Facebook, so I'm very curious to know more about how did you enter also in the crypto space?
Yeah. Maybe we should see if there's another microphone that might make this a bit more. Okay, perfect. Yeah, well, I'm so excited to see you. I can't see any of you because the lights are so incredibly bright. So it feels like you and I are just going to have like.
Better because I'm quite nervous.
Oh, you are? Okay, good. Well, that's always healthy. But yeah, thank you for having me here. As you mentioned, I'm Elke. I'm with Coinbase. I'm the country director for the Nordics and the Benelux. I've been with the company for almost 3 years now. And it's been quite an interesting journey, to say the least. I currently look after Northern Europe, but before that I looked after the UK, which is our largest international market. But as you said, like my background is in technology. I started off a very, very long time ago at TomTom in the Netherlands, which provided portable navigation devices, one of its kind. I then transitioned to Skype. And after about 4 years there, I joined Facebook, which now is called Meta, which I barely can say because I feel I always worked at Facebook and not Meta. But it was very much at Facebook when I was I was exposed to crypto for the first time because they tried back then to introduce Libra, the stablecoin project, which never actually made it to life. But it was the first time that I learned more about the purpose that can sit behind crypto versus it just being an investment tactic. Up until that point, all I knew about crypto was just a lot of screaming guys like invest, invest, invest. But then when you click a little bit deeper and you understand like the meaningful transition it can make for certain communities, I was very much drawn to that. So after almost 12 years, dare I say it, at Facebook, I decided that it was time for a change. I did a bit of my research and decided that I want to enter the world of Web3. And that is eventually how I ended up at Coinbase. And yeah, great company, super happy to be there.
Nice. And what are for you the challenges now to reach the mass adoption in cryptocurrencies?
I think the challenges, like we've seen over time, like significant increased adoption of crypto already. But fundamentally, public perception is incredibly important for any emerging technology. If you don't have the trust with the masses, unfortunately, adoption will lag. And it is, unfortunately, due to some of my previous employers as well, think about more of the big five in tech, that haven't always treated, for example, consumer data the way it should have been. So public perception of an emerging technology is incredibly important to drive skilled adoption. And public perception can really shift overnight. Like I think we've seen that obviously in the last 24 months with some of the things that happened on the FTX front, etc. But public perception can also quickly change the moment people see the value of a certain use case. It can change very, very quickly. But we also like to think that governments should be held responsible in some ways to ensure that they increase awareness by delivering policies that help flourish new industries, etc. I talked about bad actors, not really bad actors, but bad actors in general. Like I think, again, those that haven't operated in the right way in the past have given this industry a negative reputation. And we're not only seeing, obviously, like bad actors in our industry, we're seeing it across emerging technologies in general. Like when we think about AI right now and deep fakes, I am deeply concerned, like as a human, but also as a parent. Like, how am I going to be able to explain to my kids what's real and what's fake, and for them engage in that technology in a proper way? So I think those are two examples that really can hold back skilled adoption. So the lack of regulation, well, regulation's coming, which we're going to get to in a second. But then also like bad actors. It's good though on the bad actor front as well. In the last 12 to 24 months, we've seen really significant crackdown, and regulation is very much also in aid of ensuring ethical practices So progress is being made on that front.
Yeah, about regulation, how do you think Europe, because of course we are in Europe as well, can maintain its position as leader in tech, but ensuring to follow regulation that is always changing as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, Europe is, once again, as a proud European I am, it's really, really, really setting the gold standard for what meaningful regulation looks like. And in this instance, I'm obviously referring to MiCA, the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation Act, which is a very, very comprehensive framework that provides very clear rules and guidelines on how players within this space can and should operate moving forward. It has consumer protection, obviously, at its core. And because of this incoming regulation, what I hope that we're going to see is an increased consumer trust. And with trust comes adoption, and with adoption becomes mainstream consumption. It's like that flywheel that hopefully, like this European regulation is unlocking. I would also say that MiCA, it's a true example of what comprehensive regulation can look like, and it's very much in the stark contrast of what's happening in the US right now, where regulation is likely going to be shaped through enforcement instead of in partnership with the industry. So yeah, I think with that I made it pretty clear that we are excited about regulation and we're wholeheartedly welcoming that.
And what about young generation? Like, you think the popularity among them is growing, and how can you attract them more? Because of course there is also the problem that younger people cannot use like the platforms, the exchanges, but they are very popular among them. So how do you behave with the younger generation?
Yeah, I think we're seeing across Europe, we're seeing a real cultural attitude shift towards finance and investment in general. So I guess that short answer is like, yes, we're seeing that changing. And what has that been driving? And we sort of have to almost take a step back and look at like the traditional financial services industry as it stands today. Like, it's 100 years old, and it really hasn't seen the same level of disruption that other industries like music, for example, have seen. Like, I don't want to compare music to finance. There's obviously been some movements, but in its essence, today, the traditional financial industry is still opaque, it's expensive, it is very slow, and it is also not inclusive. I don't want to generalize and speak on everybody's behalf here, but most of us are likely to be in a very fortunate position that we can access traditional finance, like we can open bank accounts. As painful as that might be, if you've ever moved countries, you will have experienced that yourself. But there are a lot of people who don't have access to traditional finance, and those very often are the people that need that most. I read a stat somewhere the other day that in the US, about 5% of people are still unbanked, and pull that much broader worldwide. Like, we're looking at billions and billions of people who don't have access to financial instruments, and they are the people that need the most to protect them either from inflation, but they can't meet these requirements because they don't meet minimum credit balances. They can't afford those incredibly expensive fees.
Is impossible to fill.
Well, and also they have real concerns with how these organizations are centrally managed. So, having said all of that, like, the way the traditional financial industry stands today is just outdated and unfair, and especially amongst a younger generation, so Generation Z and Millennial. Can we still call millennials young? I like to think so. I'm a very old millennial myself. We're seeing very much that change, and the result of that is the increased adoption, obviously, that we're seeing at Coinbase, but across the industry, of our products and services. And that has also really triggered an appetite for education and awareness. So we're seeing an increased behavior of people wanting to learn about blockchain technology, which then again triggers questions and interest in areas like DeFi. So it's sort of a bit of a spy wheel. So the attitude is very much changing. The next generation is ready for change, and I want to say all with us in the room agree probably with that, because otherwise we wouldn't be attending a conference like this. But hopefully that is going to be the generation that is also really going to help scale the adoption and use cases.
And you mentioned AI before, but could you share some of the most exciting innovation you've seen recently within the crypto market?
Absolutely. I mean, it is quite the time to be within this space. I'm sure everyone agrees with that. And especially working for a company like Coinbase, we are so much more than just like a trading platform. We really like to think ourselves as this one-stop shop for everything within the Web3 space. So it doesn't matter if you're a retail consumer that is interested in just starting to dabble within crypto. We have our simple trading platform for that. But if you're an advanced trader, day trader, prosumers we almost call them, we have a very sophisticated advanced trading offering as well. If you're on the institutional side, we offer services for that. The developer ecosystem, again, like our platform allows you to build on chain, which I'll get to in a second. But also if you are an SMB and you want to start implementing crypto as a payment method, like we offer service for that as well. So we really like to think ourselves as this one-stop shop and like a true enabler for the promise that Web3 and decentralization holds. That was a bit of a pitch about Coinbase, I guess. But let me move on to that. I think the things that I'm excited about are obviously like the layer twos. The layer twos will contribute super meaningfully in increasing the usage of usage of people getting on chain. We launched, when was it? I want to say in May 2023, Base, which is our low-cost Ethereum L2. Which was, let me think, it was on August 2023 that Base mainnet became available. And the vision for Base is very much to bring the next billion developers on chain, and therefore next million developers, and therefore the next billion people. Base is very easy to use. It is very cost efficient, super fast. Transactions on Ethereum are as low as 10 cents each, which are uncompared. So yeah, we're super excited about Base. We've also seen incredible adoption of the platform. Like we're one of the biggest L2s out there now and have grown really fast in the last 15 months. But the other thing that I'm excited about is, well, we all can't predict the future and what the future finance will look like, but I think that we're going to see an increased adoption on the institutional side of crypto as well. And a huge contributor to that was obviously like the ETF approvals earlier this year. I mean, wow, that was like a landmark moment for the industry altogether because it truly validated, truly validated crypto. So hopefully we're going to see even more institutional adoption on that. And then I'm super excited about stablecoins. I really am. Stablecoins are so close to a use case that those that are not as well versed within this space truly adopt.
For sure, right now it's a big trend, the tokenization of real assets.
Yeah,
Stablecoins.
It's super interesting, and we're seeing like huge payment players like PayPal and Stripe doing exciting things. Like today, merchants on Stripe can accept payments in USDC on Ethereum, Solana, and Polygon that automatically get converted to fiat. I mean, talking about scale. PayPal now allows cross-border transfers for free with stablecoins to over 160 countries, where normally those fees would be somewhere between 4.5% to 7%. I mean, that is incredible. I think that the stablecoin settlement volume in 2023 was something like 10 trillion, which is insane. It's like 10x of what you see in traditional remittances. And stablecoins also really offer a safe haven. I mentioned that earlier already as well, for people that are in markets where they're experiencing huge inflation issues like Argentina right now. So super excited about the future of stablecoins. I think the last thing to say about stablecoins as well is like we basically announced the support of Circle's Euro stablecoin on Base. And we're even offering no fees on Euro to stablecoin, Euro to EuroC today as well to really help drive that skilled adoption. So I mean, stablecoins for the win. Yeah.
And we have a lot of artists here in the NFT space. Do you have any update or news about what Coinbase is doing in the sector?
On the NFT side, I don't, unfortunately. No, I don't. Sorry, that was a good way of trying for me to let some things loose that I might or might not be able to talking about. But yeah, no updates from me on that side.
And what role do you see for crypto in the next decade?
Which one? Sorry, can you repeat the question?
What role do you see for crypto in the next 10 years?
Oh yeah, well, crypto is here to stay. Like, we fundamentally believe that crypto is the future of money. And we are laser focused as an organization to really update the traditional financial system, which I talked about earlier, as a company. So we are committed to this space, obviously, for the long term. And when you sort of like look 10 years at, who knows? I hope we can have this conversation in 10 years, and we're probably then asking
again in the 10th edition of
the
ETHMilan.
10th, exactly. Let's make that a thing happen. And we're talking about how Gen Alpha is feeling about things. It's a bit too early for that. But I think like what I find very promising is the block just published some research which was conducted by Coinbase in full transparency, but we have seen real significant growth in the top Fortune 100 companies that are actually launching on-chain initiatives. There's been an increase of 30% 39%, not even 30% year over year, which is incredible. 50% of the top 500 Fortune CEOs have confirmed that they're working on on-chain projects, including consumer-facing payment integration. So by seeing sort of like these very, very large organizations, some of them traditional ones, really embracing Web3 and on-chain technology is going to start fueling those use cases that we really need in order for the entire industry to move along. So in 10 years, I really hope that we're going to be able to see people in our second or third circles, our friends and family, getting a lot more comfortable with crypto. I don't know what your experience is, but there is still a lot of apprehension around the uses of crypto. Crypto very often still gets mentioned, especially when you watch TV and like people are doing illegal activities. It's like
scams,
they pay on crypto, etc.
A lot of people losing money. Yeah, I know.
I hope that like that is going to get phased out because people see the value and truly understand, the potential that it holds, and it becomes normalized.
And you mentioned education before. I know you are doing a lot of activities with Coinbase in terms of education. Can you mention a few?
Yeah.
For people who want to join your blog. I know you are doing the Earn platform. So
Yeah, we fundamentally believe that education is key. Like, education gives people the trust and the confidence to participate within this space, regardless of how far on your journey you are here. For a more beginner and intender audience, so people that aren't in crypto yet, we have a very, very broad suite of educational materials available. So on Coinbase, we have learning rewards. You basically complete a short curriculum on a particular topic, and we incentivize you with some crypto, which is incredibly popular. But we also have a lot of like more extensive learning materials available, which are all available on our website. But it isn't just Coinbase, right? It is most players that are trying to do the right thing here are offering meaningful educational materials. So I think any of the big players out there will offer materials that one can brush up on.
And do you have any suggestion for people that is new to cryptocurrency and they want to join, but they are still a bit afraid?
Yeah. I feel that's probably not this audience, but I think the most important thing is like do your research and inform what your own risk appetite is. How much are you willing to lose or not? I think it is, again, we talked about this earlier, but it is the insane losses that people have experienced in the past that is making people that have a little bit of extra money perhaps a bit more apprehensive to say, okay, I'm gonna like start dabbling into crypto. So understand your own risk appetite, do a lot of your own research to make sure that you're comfortable with it. And also do some research on the exchange that you choose to perhaps start with. Like, do they offer an interface that is easy to use? Is their KYC decent? Is it what you would expect it to be? If no question gets asked, you might want to ask yourself a couple of questions, for example. So doing a little bit of research, like how are they holding customer assets? Do they hold them one-on-one? Have there been breaches from a security perspective, yes or no? Again, I do work at Coinbase, so I'm not to go into like too much of like, but we've never been compromised. Like we do hold customer assets one-on-one. So do a bit of research as well on the platform that you're putting your funds on.
So thank you so much, Elke, for your time. Thanks again.
You're very welcome.
Again for the audience. So I will pass the mic to the next panel.
Next panelist. Thank you. I still can't see any of you, but maybe it's 5 people in the room. But there we go.
I have no idea how many people there are.
So, okay. Okay, you mentioned you worked for Facebook. I'd like to ask you why Libra didn't work out. Like, why did it fail? Because it looks now to me that it could have been something really cool and ahead of its time. So how come it didn't work out?
I think you hit the nail on the head there with ahead of its time. From the sort of the way I recall it and see it, like regulators sort of woke up to the potential impact that a project like Libra could have, and the concerns on ensuring that it was done in the right way. Facebook back then had an insane amount of like huge players within the payment space committed to the project as well. And I think regulators ended up having real like serious concerns from a privacy perspective and the lack of regulation that was in place, and therefore the decision was made for the project to be halted. Would they have launched it now? Yeah, it probably would have looked very different. Again, like with there being meaningful regulation in place today across the European Union. But I think that was one of the main reasons. Internally, we really believed in it. It was a huge priority for the business. I remember having to reread a lot of the content about it because I'm not a degen within this space myself, unfortunately. But it was a big priority for the business. People were very excited about it, and we came very close to actually to it launching it. But it ended up coming down to regulators not being comfortable with the project actually launching.
Dank u wel. Great talk.
Alsjeblieft.
I'm just curious what your thoughts on with regards to, obviously there's the ongoing court case between the SEC and Coinbase US, and it seems as though that's been pushed back a little bit too, because obviously this year's presidential elections in the US is going to have quite a significant impact on what we see coming from the regulatory side in the US, and obviously being as strong of an economy as what it is, it's got a massive impact on us globally. I was just curious what your take is on the SEC and the SEC's actions on Coinbase, but from Coinbase Europe's perspective. Like, does that bother us so much? Like, we've got Mike, as you mentioned, as regulation or coming into effect later this year. What's your thoughts on that? Thank you.
It's a great question. I get asked that question a lot as well. I obviously, I'm not really close to the case itself, and B, even if I was, I wouldn't. My legal and comms team would not allow me to talk about it. I think the one thing I will say about this is that whatever ends up happening will have a huge impact on the industry overall, not just for Coinbase, but as I said, this entire industry, because of the dominance of the US market still. From a European perspective, again, like we would see probably if it either goes left or right or wherever this ends up being, like we'll see it impacting consumer adoption or not. But in Europe, like we are very laser focused right now on MiCA and very proud and very pro this comprehensive regulatory framework. And we believe that this is setting an example for the global stage very much. Hopefully, take the US out of consideration, we'll see other jurisdictions replicate something similar to MiCA, or at least take certain components of that and introduce wholesale regulation that doesn't entirely stifle innovation either, because I think that is a big concern that the industry is seeing, that because of this regulation, like innovation is going to be hindered. And yes, regulation does like it can make innovation a little bit more challenging, but we actually very much see it as a catalyst for growth. Because the moment there isn't clarity on regulation, especially on the institutional side, what ends up happening is like there is uncertainty in the market. Uncertainty then again fuels a lack of adoption, and that isn't great at all. So that's a really long-winded answer as well as a complete detour here. But to say that I can't talk about the SEC lawsuit, nor do I know much about it. But whatever way this ends up going, given the size of the US market, we will see movements for that in the entire industry likely to happen.
I think we still have 5 minutes. There are other questions?
Gentleman in the back. I feel like I'm being interviewed, which is very true, isn't it?
Fireside chat.
Hi.
Hi.
What would be the characteristics that the crypto of your dreams should have, and what would be the goals that it needs to answer, and what would need to happen on the regulatory side for that crypto to manifest into reality?
Sorry, I didn't get the beginning of the question.
The cryptocurrency of your dreams, what characteristics should it have, and what would be its goal?
Yeah, well, I think that like for Europe, especially like the European stablecoins, so EuroC is going to be very big and impactful. Obviously, what we're seeing on the USDC side, people would have concerns if your primary way of funding is euros, is on the FX side. So I think like EuroC is going to be fantastic for us Europeans here as well. And I think like, yeah, I don't want to keep on coming back to sort of like regulation, but or answer your question in like how are we going to see like real scaled adoption? It is, and it ends up coming down to people feeling good and secure about getting into this space, which today perhaps isn't the case just yet, and that is what MiCA fundamentally is going to change. I think the other thing that will end up contributing to this is seeing more real world use cases, like how crypto can be used in people's day-to-day life, like being able to check out in very mainstream applications from a payments perspective, where you can actually pay with crypto, like normalizing that. I don't know if you remember back in the day, but like having the option to like log in with Facebook was like, whoa, that's like really big. Right now, whenever I'm trying to register for anything, like I get 4 different register options. It's normalized it entirely. Like we wouldn't even know that it wouldn't be a possibility to take your information across the web. But we're not there just yet, right? Like those use cases will need to expand even further for it to become normalized. Yeah, like Coinbase Commerce, like that already exists. So we do see huge adoption of commerce by a variety of different companies of different type of size as well. But that really needs to reach a certain tipping point in order for it to become normalized. I was in Amsterdam the other day, all of summer actually, and I went to one of my little sort of corner stores to pick up some ice cream for my kids, and there was a huge sign up there that said, "Pay in cash, cash is safe, still exists." And I honestly felt really down, had to have a glass of wine after that, because there is still very much that in the merchant side, very much that emphasis on fiat cash. But I'm optimistic, and I believe that like long term we will see that skilled adoption happening. You're very welcome. Any other folks? All right, with that, perhaps the moment has come for lunch.
Yes. Yeah, now it's work.
I'm definitely hungry.
So
Thank you for having
again.
me.